Welcome to Wellingtone's latest webinar. My name's Emma-Ruth Arnaz-Pemberton, and I have Ellen Jarrett here from Ellas Kitchen, who are the APM PMO of the Year winners for 2018. Hi Ellen, how are you?
Hi, good, thank you.
Thank you for joining us today and taking the time out, particularly at lunchtime. So we're going to go through a number of different bits. First of all, I'm going to introduce the award, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about Ellen, and then I'll introduce Ellen, and she can tell us a little bit about herself, how she got into PMO, and a bit about Ellas Kitchen and what they do. Then we've asked Ellen some key questions. So how did she get into PMO, which is always a fascinating listen in our particular industry. The story of the Ellas Kitchen PMO, the top lessons that they've learned along the way, and what they see in the future. So I'm going to start off just introducing the APM's award for PMO of the Year. The APM PMO of the Year award has been around for 2 years. This is its second year, and Wellingtone are proud to have sponsored this award. The award really is looking not just at how good you are at delivering projects, but actually what is the journey, what's the legacy that a PMO is leaving in its wake for organizations? How does it add value? How does it engage with the community? So I'm going to properly introduce Ellen. Ellen, you can see there, very proudly holding the APM award from 2 weeks ago. So Ellen, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure, happy to. Yes, I'm really passionate about PMOs and how much value they can bring to an organisation. I've been at Ellas Kitchen here since 2016, and I'll talk you through kind of how I got into PMO in a minute. Ellas Kitchen, as you may know, is a baby food company that was only started about 13 years ago by Paul Lindley, who has a daughter called Ella, who at the time was about 2 or 3, I think, and that's why he came up with the company. That aims to promote healthy eating with babies and young children. It's now, we have about 70 million turnover with about 70 employees, and as a PMO we run about 50 live projects at any one time.
Cool. And what's your background? How did you get to Ellas Kitchen?
So how I got to Ellas Kitchen, well, I actually began in charities. So I spent about 15 years working in charities on fundraising events and campaigns, and then that sort of morphed into sort of project management, and then that morphed into PMO, and then I saw this role a couple of years ago, and yeah, just let plus it really. I always loved the brand and loved the PMO, so it was a perfect kind of merge together. Like a lot of people, I'd say I kind of fell into project management, having not really known about it when I started out. I was in charities for a long time, and then one charity I oversaw a really large team that was delivering a lot of projects at a sustainable transport charity. But even at that point, if someone had said to me PMO, I wouldn't have known what it meant. I wouldn't have known that actually what I was doing was that. It was when I joined Guide Dogs for the Blind in 2015, and I was recruited with the task of sorting out all our projects. But I started doing a lot of research and realised that we really formally needed to create a PMO. So I had to lobby to get a couple of extra staff, you know, to kind of educate that one person cannot be a PMO for an organisation that size. So I managed to get those guys in, and together we created a whole new governance structure and templates for the whole of Guide Dogs for the Blind and all of their projects. So that was definitely a baptism of fire in the PMO world. And then the opportunity basically came up to do the same thing at Ellas. So I went for it, and here we are.
It's amazing how many people manage to fall into PMO and then kind of fall in love a little bit with what we do.
Yeah. I do really love it. I realised that I was like, oh, this is the right zone for me.
Yeah, sure. I think most of us have that particular, it has that kind of impact on all of us. So what's the story of the Ellas Kitchen PMO? Tell us a little bit about your journey, how you got to where you were and came to eventually put yourselves forward for the APM PMO of the Year award.
So the PMO was created, again, they wouldn't have called it a PMO, it was called the Smoothly team, was created a couple of years ago, and before it existed, all of our projects, so that's coming up with new flavours, new products or internal projects, they were all managed by what we call our product managers, that other people might call a brand manager. which was a bit of a conflict of interest really, because they were the people that was proposing the project in the first place, and it wasn't the best use of resource because they were insanely busy as a result, and they weren't necessarily the right skill set to project manage these things. So as a result, we were just beginning to make the wrong decisions. We were wasting a lot of internal time. Took a long time to get our products to market, and a long time to decide to stop ones that we shouldn't be doing. So when I came in and they decided to create the team, I spent a lot of time refreshing our process and helping people understand what a project manager does. At the start, I'd say they definitely thought we were just kind of there to book rooms and take notes. So it took a bit of education to be like, well, no, actually, it's so much broader than that, and we're more likely to lead a project to success. Something I think that's been pivotal to the PMO working out is that we've created a whole raft of user-friendly and really engaging tools that help the business. So there's a few slides here. So the picture you're looking at there is called Smoothly PR, because we want to make it clear that we are here to help people and not just chase them. So every fortnight we walk around every desk and we ask people if they have any questions we can help them with, or any suggestions for how the process can work better internally. And the rule is that if those hats are on that we hand crocheted ourselves, then we're not allowed to ask them any questions. Only they're allowed to ask questions. So it's kind of a safe zone that we're not going to chase anyone. And we give out, for example, like little chocolate carrots to people. Once a week we decide if we're going to give a couple of carrots out to people that have gone the extra mile that week. And they're only like little light-hearted things, but I think they really help with people's motivation and to feel that we're a support function as well. And I think you've also got, if you click on another, so I cannot recommend this highly enough. This is an online project management system called, the suppliers are called teamwork.com. I think they originally came up with Basecamp back in the day. We've renamed it for our organisation Smooth Operator. And basically when I came in, like I said, we might have 50 projects going at any one time, and every single one of them had its own Excel spreadsheet, which then had about 5 tabs within it, for actions and timeline. And it was just Excel overload, and no one, to be honest, knew at any one point what tasks they had on any project because it was unmanageable. So everything is now inside this system, which means any person that's on, let's say, 6 project teams can, with one click, can see every task they have in any order they choose across every project they're on. And I just can't overstate how much of a difference that has made to the business. It does lots of other things too, but for us that's such a fundamental function that's transformed how efficient we are with projects.
Sure.
So yeah, I really can't recommend that highly enough. Another thing you've got there is that it's called the P line, so it's our version of a pipeline. I should have said that before, it would make a lot more sense, that our strategy is all around 3 Ps, because we realised we were all about projects and priorities and people. So we thought, well, that's Ps, so we put a P spin on everything. Again, just to kind of engage with people and make it more fun. I think it's quite important if you can do it in the business. So anyway, that's our P line. It's an interactive spreadsheet, so if you change the launch date on it, for example, the cells automatically move. It's kind of hard to describe without showing it, but it's a really user-friendly but very, very efficient and smart tool. So that really helps the senior management team to prioritise and make sure we're not missing any important times when we need to launch products, but equally we're not overloading people. And then that final one there is called the P tree, so it's like a decision tree, because when I came in, there was a huge amount of misunderstanding about how long a project is, and it's a bit, how long is a piece of string, isn't it? So some of our projects take 6 months, some of them take a year and a half, and it depends on these various factors, whether it's a new factory, a new flavour, a new packet. So we really figured out what those lengths were and put them in this user-friendly format, which actually helps us plan ahead a lot better. And there's a few other things as well, but I just thought I'd show these. We really made some effort to come up with user-friendly tools that would solve a problem the business had.
Yeah, and I think that really came through in your submission as well. That 2 things: the fact that you really tailored what's out there to your reality, you've also, from my perspective, I love the fact that you've put the personality into it, you know, to make sure that you are approachable as far as the project teams are concerned, and that you are a support function, not just those people that are going to chase. So I think that's a really positive impact that you had, and that really came through in your presentation, which was really, really good.
Yeah.
So congratulations.
In terms of how we came to, thank you. The reason we came to apply for the award actually was there's a big thing at Ellas Kitchen about thinking differently and looking for inspiration and not resting on your laurels. So we made an effort, each of us would go and meet with at least two organisations every year that run similar, that have PMOs or in a similar industry. And one of the people I went to see was the Royal Mail, who'd won an award, I think, the previous year.
Yeah.
And we showed them all our stuff, and we were seeing if they had anything they would recommend for us. And it was them that said, you know what, this is inspiring stuff, why don't you go for an award? So that's how we came to apply, and yeah, we're delighted that they recommended it to us.
Yeah, that's amazing, and congratulations on the win. Yeah, no, we had really, really good finalists, but for me, like I say, those couple of bits, the fact that you have put personality, you're not afraid to be different and have a little bit of fun with it, I think that, for me personally, that really stands out, because I think we spend too long at work for it to, you know, just be, or where we're doing bureaucracy and we're doing admin and all of that. So I think it makes a massive difference if you do put a bit of personality that kind of leans to the organisational culture, which you've done in spades. So I think that's really good.
Yeah.
So what are the top lessons that you've learned during your PMO journey?
So yeah, some of the things you've touched on. The first one I've put is to be values driven. So whatever the values are of your organisation, just try to embody them in everything that you do. Mm-hmm. So at Ellas Kitchen we have these strong values that are really important to the business, which are to be childlike, to be good to each other, to think differently, to be business-minded and want to win. So hopefully, again, if you think of all those things to be created, those should scream out at you. I always think it's really important that PMOs should try to remember that it's, in my mind, it's a service function for the business, in the same way you would think of HR or finance or facilities, and they are there to help people, and you should try to be sort of kind and positive in your interactions. I think that's quite important. Ultimately, my dream as a PMO head has always been that people would proactively come to the PMO and say, could you help me with this project? I'm thinking of doing this project, rather than try and avoid them, because they have a sense of trust that if you involve us, your project is more likely to succeed. And I think if you embed your values and you're positive in the message that you give out, you are more likely to get people coming towards you. Definitely. So that's the first one. The second one is to demystify. As you can probably spot from the things we've created, I feel really strongly about demystifying project management internally. I've worked at places and I've seen, the use of jargon and acronyms almost to intimidate. I've definitely had it said to me in my early days, have you done a PID? Oh my God, you don't even know what PID stands for. And all I think that serves to do is make people fear PMOs and avoid them. And I think it's not a helpful kind of attitude. So what we did at Guide Dogs, and even more so here, is to take traditional project management stages and tools, because there's a reason you need them, but we tailor them and we rename them so that they're still fit for purpose, but they make sense to people who maybe obviously haven't studied project management before. So for example, at Ellas, rather than have a business case, we ask people to complete what we call a worth it. And if something goes a bit awry during a project, we ask them to complete just a one-page called a curveball rather than a change request. Yep. And they might seem like little things, but I think they're quite fundamental to tailor your stuff to make them as easy as possible for people to use while still giving you what you need as a PMO.
Definitely.
So that's demystifying. And then the last one is adding value. So my last recommendation is to try and add value to the organisation. Obviously a lot of time is spent running around and gathering updates on projects, but try to store it in a way that you can pull insight from it to help the senior teams to identify trends to learn from. So for example, at Ellas, no one had kept a record of all the projects that we'd done. So when I came in and, within the first year, I think we'd retrospectively gone in and inputted every bit of data on every project, and there were about 70 up to that point that had been run. And then we crunched all that data and we spotted a lot of things. For example, when we were braver about closing projects early that we didn't think were going to make it, a year later we found that we had less delist, which is when we have to withdraw a product from the market, which is obviously not a good thing to have to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it made us feel braver about saying no to things, because we realised, you know what, if we don't say no now, in a year's time, it's going to come out of market anyway. So it does, sometimes that involves a lot of spreadsheet work in the background, but I think it's really important, and I think it helps raise the PMO status and value internally.
And I think it shows a real sign of maturity, the fact that you take that approach with some of the projects of, this doesn't seem worth it for whatever the reason is. Sometimes it's, something external that we can't control, and sometimes we change direction, or it's just not viable anymore.
Yeah.
So I think that's a real sign of maturity, that you actually are able and willing and brave enough to close projects halfway through. So I think that really, again, it shows through in terms of maturity. And kind of last question for you, really. What do you see as the future of PMO, both for Ellas Kitchen, but also for, the industry as a whole? What would you like to see?
So at Ellas Kitchen, I'm just trying to grow the smoothly team and just keep pushing to see if we can expand, because one of my challenges personally is managing the dual role of heading up the PMO, as well as project managing a number of projects myself, which can cause a conflict of interest. So if we can secure that, I can focus even more so on this higher level analysis and also start looking at programs, which we haven't yet cracked. Mm-hmm. In the broader context, I would hope that this award inspires and would lead people to see that the structure and style of a PMO can be more flexible. You don't have to call it a PMO. It can be taken up by small organisations, and for people to know that you don't need a massive budget to achieve great things. Because, as I say, we're a small business and there's only 2 of us in this PMO, but you can create one and recognise the role of a project manager. So I think it's often not the first thing that comes to mind when you're looking at what you're adding new headcount to a business, but if the PMO gets it right, it actually frees up a lot of resource internally to making sure that people are spending their time on the right projects. So actually, if you get that right, I think we're an absolute bargain, and I hope that inspires other businesses to consider creating a PMO.
I think that's great, and I totally agree on that we do need to make PMOs more accessible, and I think people are starting to see the real value. So I think a few years ago, organisations started to understand the value of project management, and I think now they want to almost, okay, let's corral that a little bit and just be able to support these people a little bit more. And I think that's where we're seeing the growth and the rise of PMOs, which we can see from the introduction of the award just last year. So I think it is becoming more prevalent, and I think the days of it's a bureaucratic function that does admin are very much gone. So I think more accessible is definitely key in the future. So a couple of things before we finish off. Wellingtone, we are passionate about PMO. We have some services to support PMOs to enable a step change in their maturity. So we have the only APM accredited PMO practitioner course. It's 2 days, and it's really designed to kind of be a practical approach to setting up or transforming or evolving your PMO. It takes the theory that's out there and puts it into real practice, where people actually develop documents and templates and artifacts that they can genuinely take back and start to work with them immediately. The other thing that we do with most of our clients actually is a PMO maturity assessment. There are some maturity assessments, and not very many of them actually focus on PMO as the enabling function for change in the organisation. And what we're able to do through our survey data is we're actually able to benchmark organisations against a number of other organisations, both in that industry and outside. So we're able to really see what are the strengths, what are the opportunities that you can leverage, and where you can improve. That also allows us to start building a bit of a roadmap for PMOs. So we do that with all of our clients. We do it when we start an engagement, and we do it after we finish, so we can actually show that level of growth. And just like PMOs, it's important that we prove it. We prove the value that we add. So that's something that we're finding is really, really valuable to organisations. And lastly, we have our PMO competence framework. So again, there are competence frameworks out there, but they're very delivery focused. So actually, the role of the PMO is not the same as the project manager, so we need to take it to that next level. So we're actually, during the competence framework, which is done either in a self-serve or a coaching situation, we look at are you good at, can you do delivery? Absolutely, that's important. But we're also looking at how good are you at looking at the wider strategy, the wider world, and capability. What mindset do you have? So we're actually tailoring and creating services to support PMOs a little bit better. Lastly, I want to say congratulations, Ellen, for the win of PMO of the Year award. I see that you've already got it on your signatures and all over the place.
Yeah.
So yeah,
we do. We're a bit proud.
Yeah, make the most of it, and you can speak to Ellen or the other guys at Ellas Kitchen at Future PMO next year. Thank you very much for your time, Ellen.
Thank you.